for marijuana, either possession, use, or sale, which is an absolute outrage that you would have to have the taxpayers pay that kind of money to keep marijuana users behind bars. So I am for, in fact, the changing the federal law regarding marijuana, changing it from a Class 1 felony, or a class, what do they call it? Class 1 narcotic. That's how it's classed, same as heroin. Changing that, taking that away. Because what it's done is create these prison populations. It's created cartels. It's turned a bunch of people who smoke marijuana into criminals and people who need it for medical use instead of turning to addictive prescription drugs. And hemp at the same time, which used in the late 1800s was the largest farm crop in the world, worldwide, because it had so many useful uses, including medicinal. That too is banned under this act. And I'd like to see that stopped, because we don't need to put these people in jail. Young people who get picked up for marijuana possession or whatever, that's on their record. That's on their record. And when they go to get a job, a lot of good jobs are denied to them simply because in their background somewhere is a marijuana possession charge. And it hurts everybody. And the war on drugs, we spend $1 trillion, and I can tell you that you look at the price of heroin. Look at the price of heroin right here in Escondido. Look at the price of heroin in Ramona. It's not down. We spend $1 trillion, and it's still the same price. That tells you that the war on drugs doesn't work. Somebody's making a lot of money, but it's causing a lot of pain. It's bringing, prohibition always brings about organized crime, and despite the people's wishes, we can't, particularly marijuana, we can't be throwing these people in jail, paying billions of dollars for no reason. So I'm sorry I got on a rant, but yes, privatization is an issue, and private prisons. They're meant to be full. So that's why judges and other people will give them maximum sentences to make sure that they keep it full. And it's just not right.
And what about the oil subsidies and the corporate subsidies? Is that something you would like to get rid of?
There is no reason to subsidize oil whatsoever. I mean, it's the number one. I mean, you look at the top money-making corporations in the world. That's where they are, and they don't need subsidy like they might have. God knows how many years ago, but they certainly haven't needed it for a long time. The tax code itself has been built over the years. Each time a congressman will get in, how does the tax code get to be whatever thickness it is? It's not because people like you and I, we need to help average Joe, he's getting, we need to give him a little break here because of so-and-so. All those pages are little bitty things that are added in by congressmen and approved by their buddies in Congress to give some special interest a little tax break that'll let them keep more money. We need to overhaul the tax code, pure and simple, but we definitely do not need to give these people subsidies, and we do need to overhaul the tax code itself so that all the tax breaks and deductions and write-offs, carried interest, etc., all those things that the top end get to take advantage of, which is one reason their rates are lower than yours and mine, that has to go away. What I found was, and this gets back to your question earlier about the notion of trickle-down economics, which was what the whole idea behind the Bush tax cuts was. That if you keep giving uh, wealthy people enough money, then eventually they'll create jobs. Here's the deal. You can give these, say in this town there were 10 millionaires, and you gave them all the tax breaks, right? So you have a pizza business. Now, is it better to give those 10 families these huge tax breaks and keep regular people, paying the bills? And you got a pizza business. Now, how many pizzas are those 10 families going to buy? Doesn't it make sense to see to it that the people in the middle class get the tax breaks? Because if you've got 1,000 families that are getting a tax break, they're going to buy a lot more pizzas than these 10 families will. That's why you have to make sure that the working class people are the ones that have the most of the tax breaks, because they're going to spend the money, and they're going to be the ones that keep small businesses in business. Because what's happening, as you know, with the pressure that we're seeing now in the economy, many small businesses are forced to close just because other people whose wages and benefits are being cut and their insurance premium, they can't afford to go to the pizza place anymore. So eventually, when the customer is squeezed so hard and has to stay, instead of going to buy your pizza once a week, buys it once a month, then you're going to have to shut down. So if we keep people working, the working people are to be the ones that will keep small businesses going, just because they patronize them. And it doesn't do any good to have a few people at the top with all the money, because they're not going to be able to buy that many pizzas. They're not going to be able to buy 50 cars each. They don't need them. So they save the money and continue to get richer, but it doesn't do the economy any good.
So people have this idea in their head, reasonably so, I suppose, that with our high cost of gasoline right now, that if they had this XL pipeline taking the Canadian oil and dumping it down into the Gulf to the refineries there, that it would lower our gas prices. Can you address that, please?
That is the biggest load of bull that's been going around in the last year. Because I remember at the end of the last year, they said it was part of the deal. Remember when they were going to have a payroll tax, a break for working people, and the Republican Party and Fox News and everybody said, Republican Party said, well, we'll do this. We'll give the working people a break, but you got to build the XL pipeline because we need it real bad, because it's going to help us so much. This is the truth. It's going to take a second, but if they build the XL pipeline to the Gulf, gas prices are not going to go down. They're going to go up. And I'll give you a reason why. Right now, it is happening right now in anticipation of the pipeline being built. The refineries in the Gulf, where this oil is supposed to go, they are already switching from producing gasoline to producing diesel for export. The XL tar sands oil is about 3 times or more dirtier than well oil. Now, so it's easier to turn it into diesel than it is to try and refine it into gasoline. So they're already switching from gas refining to diesel for export, which means less gasoline, which means higher price.
Well, where's that diesel go?
The diesel goes to Europe and it goes to China, where they use diesel in vehicles. We don't, your regular vehicles, and we don't do that here. So and so, on top of that, the refineries for export, they are in a tax-free zone down in the Gulf, which means that all the refined oil products that they ship around the world, that's tax-free. We don't get any money from that. That goes straight to the oil companies. Now, what the oil refined stuff that they sell here is taxed. So there's no incentive for them to make more gasoline. The incentive is to make diesel for export because that's where they maximize their profits. The XL pipeline is right now. If I could just show you for a second. Right now, you have a situation where you have Canadian oil that's going to the Great Lakes right now, right? And it's sold at a discount to us because they have so much of it. They'll sell it to us at a discount to our Great Lake refineries. But if you build the pipeline down to the Gulf, the discount that we get here is going to go away because the oil will be able to go to the Gulf for export then. And so these people that make gasoline, they're not going to be making as much gasoline. And the gasoline they do make, because the discount is no longer there, is going to be higher. Is going to cost more. And then the oil that goes through here to the Gulf is going to be made into diesel and shipped offshore tax-free, and they're going to be shutting down more and more gas refineries down here because the money's in diesel. So you're going to have less gasoline here, you're going to have more expensive gasoline here, and supply and demand, the price of gasoline is going to shoot up. That's the basic deal. So it's been a lie that they are telling you that all the oil that we produce is not for America. It's sold at the world market price. We don't control the price. In fact, when they offered, I think one of the congressmen made an amendment saying, okay, if we build the XL pipeline, this was last year, if we build the XL pipeline, we're going to put in the law that that oil must be used in the United States. And the Republicans voted it down because they know that ain't happening. So wherever the oil comes from, Alaska, offshore, Gulf of Mexico, doesn't make any difference. Tar sands doesn't make any difference. The oil is sold at the open market. We don't control the oil. It goes to the highest bidder, and we will see the price go the way it does. And we're better off without the XL pipeline if you're concerned about gasoline prices. That's the bottom line.
So, I know that they're using this terminology called class warfare and everything, but and they're also using the terminology citing the greatest generation and the wonderful things they did. But in fact, that during the greatest generation, they invested in jobs, American jobs, not offshoring them. They invested in the middle class. They invested in education because that was our future, and our infrastructure. And the people that ran the corporations and the companies didn't take such, a big bunch home. And as a result, we had a great prosperity in America. But now, the same people that are citing the greatest generation are operating in just the opposite manner. So maybe you could talk about that.
Well, it's absolutely true. It begins, by the way, after the Depression, when we got into World War II, right? The World War II, obviously, because we had to have all the weapons and we had to increase the troop levels and everything. That was government spending on steroids at that time. In fact, you'll hear now, even when they talk about government spending or military spending, you have to go back to World War II to talk about the kind of money we're throwing at the Pentagon. But coming out of that, we had built up a workforce, we had built up so many factories that once they converted back to civilian uses, that period from the late 40s up to, I don't know, maybe the mid-60s, pretty close to it, that was the time when the middle-class families had the best life you could have. And it was, like you said, at that time, There used to be a thing called being a good corporate citizen. People cared. I mean, they would say, oh, the most important thing is to deliver a quality product to the consumer. Somewhere along the line, I think it was finally in the 1970s, you remember, where it suddenly became the consumer wasn't the top deal anymore. The top issue was profit and return on shareholder value. The people didn't matter anymore. The question is, how can we squeeze this for a maximum amount of profit? And once that notion got held up, that's been the downfall of the middle class, because when corporations talk about we have to cut costs, they're only talking about one thing: your pay. That's all they're talking about. Either you're going to lose your job, your pay is going to go down, or we're going to have to cut your hours, we're going to have to cut your benefits, because competition is just so. But yeah, the corporate pay back in the day, and even today in other places in the world, you're looking at places in Europe, Japan, where you will have a CEO will make something like 10 to 15, 20 times what the worker makes. I think the next best one is like 40. It's like 40 times what a worker makes. United States, it's like 400 times. 400 times what the worker makes, and it's gotten totally out of control. When the tax code is responsible for this, because right now it benefits CEOs and rich people, investors, to extract all profits for themselves. Now you can change the tax code, because all the tax code is, it tells you how money is going to flow through the system, and right now it's flowing out to the super rich and the high investors and CEOs. But you can change the tax code so that it would be less attractive for them to take the money, and more attractive for them, these profits, to put them back into the company. More machinery, better training, better facilities, and that would benefit all of us. And that's simply a matter of adjusting the code. These people will still be very wealthy. I don't know where the idea is that wealthy people are not going to be wealthy. When I was a kid, there was 1%. Today, there's still 1%. And if these people's taxes had to go up 3%, they would still be in the 1%. So the idea that making an adjustment to get the economy moving is somehow crazy or socialist is insane. They're wealthy people have nothing to fear. They will still be at the top of the food chain. And if we can make the adjustments so that this money, instead of being extracted to a few people, is reinvested in the corporations, it will mean a lot for our economy. And that's something Congress can do.
Does this tie in with your ideas for helping the private companies or helping the small businesses?
Well, the best thing we can do for small business is to put people back to work, because the small business person, there's regulations, people don't like them. A lot of those are local regulations, or state, local, county, city things, and those are the primary ones. But federal regulations for small business, for the most part, are not going to be something that's going to cripple them. What they need is people coming through the door, and small businessmen know that. They're not overburdened by federal regulations. Their problem is they don't have enough people coming through the door. So that's how just the idea of putting people back to work is the first thing that will help small business. The other thing is, we had just a month ago, the president said, okay, I'm going to give a tax relief to the top 98% of the people. That's people making $250,000 or less. So the first